The Scottsboro boys case in 1931 was one of America's greatest tragedies. The case involved 9 African American youths who were arrested in Scottsboro, Alabama in 1931. According to ABC's American History Database, this case attracted national and international controversy because it demonstrated the blatant inequities and racial discrimination operating in the Southern criminal justice system.
You have folks riding the rails looking for work just because they can't afford to, I'll go find this job here. So they're just hopping on a train and riding in, trying to find work wherever they can find work. But what happens in the Scottsboro case is you have 9 black teenagers, and some of them get in a fight on the train with a couple of white guys. The train stops in Scottsboro, because this fight has broken out. As they're getting off the train, as the sheriff's folks are there, the white guys get off, the black guys get off, and then 2 white women get off. And the townsfolk are looking around going, oh. And the white women, because you've got black guys and white women in Alabama in the early 1930s, I believe 1932. It's like, whoa. And the women, Victoria Price and Ruby Bates, Yale rape.
Clarence Norris, Charlie Weems, Haywood Patterson, Olin Montgomery, Ozzie Powell, Willie Robertson, Eugene Williamson, Andy Wright, and Roy Wright were arrested and tried in April 1931 due to Victoria Price and Ruby Bates' accusation of rape for illegal boarding on a freight train.
According to ABC's American History Database, the 9 defendants received inadequate defense from 2 volunteer lawyers and were convicted by an all-white jury on the basis of extremely weak evidence. Evidence such as proof to whether the men raped the women. When Dr. R.R. Bridges and Dr. Marvin Lynch examined the 2 girls, they found no evidence of a rape occurring.
According to the PBS's timeline on the Scottsboro boys trial case, on April 6 and 7, Clarence Norris and Charlie Weems are tried and convicted and sentenced to death. On April 7 to 8, Haywood Patterson is tried, convicted, and sentenced to death. On April 8 to 9, Olin Montgomery, Ozzie Powell, Willie Robertson, Eugene Williams, and Andy Wright are tried, convicted, and sentenced to death. On April 9th, Roy Wright's trial ends in a hung jury when 11 jurors vote for a death sentence and 1 vote for life imprisonment because Wright is 13 years old at that age.
The National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, also known as the NAACP, reacted slowly to the case because of their doubts about the defendants' innocence. But they soon began to court the defendants, their parents, and public opinion for the right to represent the young men in an appeal and raise money for their defense. However, in 1932, the NAACP withdraws from the Scottsboro boys case. People from the North were organizing protests and marches to stop the innocent boys in Scottsboro from being hanged for doing a crime they never committed.
The International Labor Defense, also known as ILD, appealed the case before the Alabama Supreme Court, but then turned to the U.S. Supreme Court in November 1932. The case overrode Alabama's decisions and granted new trials to all of the defendants. According to the Encyclopedia of Alabama, the ruling established a key precedent for enforcing African Americans' rights to adequate counsel under the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment.
Although the Scottsboro boys were sentenced to death and forced to spend their lives in jail, the Scottsboro attorneys seemed racially biased, so the Supreme Court gave the boys an opportunity to retrial. This gave the boys a chance to prove their innocence and finally get out of jail.
President Franklin Delano Roosevelt was involved in the Scottsboro boys case by urging the Alabama governor to release the men. However, the Alabama governor declined to release the men.
After the trial of Norris versus Alabama, Alabama finally comes into an agreement in 1937, 7 years after the incident had occurred, to release Montgomery, Robertson, Williams, and Roy Wright. The remaining 5 received prison sentences with the expectation of quick parole.
According to ABC's American History Database, 4 of the men were eventually paroled, the last, Andy Wright, finally gaining freedom in 1950. Patterson would escape from prison and be charged with murder in a barroom brawl. He died of cancer in prison in 1952. In 1976, Norris was pardoned by Alabama Governor George Wallace, and in 1989, he was the last of the Scottsboro boys to die.
So imagine again, basically living in the shadows for almost 40, 50 years because of something that never happened. The charge of rape. I mean, Scottsboro speaks to so much in the criminal justice system. But what you also get in this is a series of Supreme Court decisions dealing with the right to competent counsel. Thank God. And the right to have a jury that is really truly a jury of your peers. Now, that is some amazing jurisprudence that is coming out of this case of horrific, egregious, unjust, justifiable. I have no more words.